I want to introduce you to Soren Kaplan. Paula mentioned Soren. I have a couple notes just because I forget things. I'm really happy to be able to introduce Soren. We've been working really closely with Soren for about a year, and he has been doing a lot of close work with us. He's the one who helped us with those definitions. He's working very closely with a small team of people in the organization, Merrick and John Ingersoll and Melissa, and I think I'm forgetting somebody, Jeff, and some others on what is this disruptive innovation capability we need to build. He is the author of a best-selling and award-winning book, Leapfrogging. He's a writer for Fast Company magazine. I encourage you to look up some of his articles. They are fascinating. He's a faculty member in the executive education program at the Copenhagen Business School. He's the founder of his own company, Innovation Point. And he's been working with companies like Disney and NBC, Universal, I can never say that, and us. So we're in really, really good company. He's also got a really other exciting, important claim to fame that he shared with me that he's really proud of, and maybe he'll talk more about that. But similar to the Apple IIe days, he is an award winner in a Commodore 64 video game contest. So with that, I give you Soren.
I came here yesterday for the start, for lunch, and I love what I'm hearing, these Rapido presentations. You're talking about all the right things, but I have to admit, when I walked in the room yesterday, I was a little concerned. I thought Steve-O had standardized on the 1999 version of the BlackBerry, and I was a little worried, but no, that is not the case. I'm going to go ahead and start out with a personal story about my experience in technology. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about, because I'm going to tie some things together I think we've already been talking about. But I'm going to also talk about the implications for leadership, because everyone in this room has a responsibility for creating a culture of innovation. And so I'm going to talk about what does that really mean. So when I was early 30s, I was at HP, late 1990s, and I was like a kid in a candy store. I was running an internal innovation group at HP. When I left there in about 2001, I was running the internal strategy consulting group, and that was a time when HP really was an innovator. We had, invented the calculator, created laser jet printers, inkjet printers, created whole new markets, created new business models. Anybody own an inkjet printer? Anybody hate how much you spend for ink? I apologize for that. But we were really at the forefront of innovation. We were working on something called utility computing, which today is cloud computing. And we were blazing new trails. But one day, one of our executives, a guy named Antonio Perez, made an announcement. He announced that he was going to leave the company. Okay, so he's leaving the company, and we got a little worried, because he was going to leave the company and he was going to join this small little startup called Kodak. So Antonio Perez was running the inkjet business unit at HP. He's going to go join Kodak. Kodak had declining film sales. They saw kind of some of the writing on the wall, perhaps, and they realized they needed to do something different. So they hired Antonio Perez, and he was going to essentially go after the printer market and disrupt HP and Epson and others by selling lower cost printers and lower cost ink, and it was going to, change the world. Well, as we know, didn't exactly work. A few years ago, Kodak went bankrupt, iconic brand going bankrupt, because they had a perfect recipe for how to be disrupted. They ignored the external environment and the technology trends. They moved too slow, not at the speed of the market. And they placed one big bet on their future. One. That's not about options. That's not really managing risk very well. So it didn't work out. Now, if you think about that story, today it's a little bit different. We have seen a lot of big innovations. I mean, we have an awareness of disruptive innovation, technology, digital, things are happening out there. We've seen whole new business models created by some of the icons that we all know, whether it's, Apple or Netflix or even Cirque du Soleil, reinventing the circus. Now, there's never been more books, articles, blogs, resources on the topic. So the world is full of innovation information. Now, we also, I think a lot of companies are feeling an urgency around innovation. So when you think about what you've seen out there, Borders, out of business, Blockbuster, gone, BlackBerry, does anybody really have a BlackBerry out there? No? Okay, good. Encyclopedia Britannica. My 16-year-old daughter doesn't even know what that is. Doesn't even know what it is. So when you look at these companies, there's really an important lesson to be learned that you don't want to repeat. I mean, think about it. What do all these companies have in common? Borders, Blockbuster, BlackBerry, Britannica. Never start a company with the letter B is the first lesson that I would say is really important. So you guys are in good shape. You've jumped over that B, CSAA. There's no research that says this, by the way. So you are familiar, though, with disruptive innovation. Because when I was 16, my grandmother, at my 16th birthday party, gave me a AAA membership. That was her gift to me. And what did I do? I went down and got all these free maps. It was pretty awesome. Today, my 16-year-old daughter has really, I don't think, as I think about it, ever really used a fold-out map and had the pleasure of trying to figure out how to refold the map as well. But you've seen, I'm not going to go through all these, but you've seen over and over and over disruption happening in various ways. And it might not be disrupting the entire business model, but things can chip away over time. Chip away, chip away, chip away, and then that Kodak example that goes down really fast. So how do you address that? So I'm going to share with you an example of how this, kind of the dynamics here and how it works. And what it is it's actually a video. It's a card trick. So what I want you to do is I want you to watch the card trick. It's about 30 seconds. You're going to see a guy, he takes a deck of cards. He turns the backs of the cards, I think it's from blue to red or red to blue. And at the end of the trick, I'm just going to ask you a simple question. How did he do the trick? And I want you to yell out how he did the trick. Okay? Go ahead and play the video.
Hi, I'm Richard, this is Sarah, and we're going to perform the amazing colour-changing card trick with this blue-backed deck of cards. Now the idea is very simple. I'm just going to spread the cards in front of Sarah and ask her to push any card towards the camera.
Right, okay, let's see. I'm going to go for this card here.
Okay. Now Sarah could have selected any card at all from the deck, but she selected the card which is now face down on the table. And what I'm going to ask her to do is show us which card she selected.
Right, so the card that I chose was in fact the 3 of diamonds.
The 3 of diamonds, okay, an excellent choice. That card goes back into the deck. Now I'm just going to spread the cards face up on the table, do a little click of the fingers, and you'll see that Sarah's card here has now got a blue back. Not particularly surprising. What's slightly more surprising is all of the other cards have got red backs. And that is the amazing colour-changing card trick.
All right, what are your hypotheses? How was that trick done? Another deck of cards that you didn't see. Brilliant, brilliant. Any other hypotheses? You're going with Nick's answer? Nick's brilliant. It's not magic. No one thinks it. Did anybody notice anything unusual in this video? What'd you see back there? Shirt color and background. Tablecloth. The lens on the angle on the camera. So this was obviously a trick video. So, and I hate trick questions. So let me show you the second part here so you can see what was really going on, and we'll talk a little bit about it. Play number 2.
Hi, I'm Richard, this is Sarah, and we're going to perform the amazing colour-changing card trick with this blue-backed deck of cards. Now the idea is very simple. I'm just going to spread the cards in front of Sarah and ask her to push any card towards the camera.
Right, okay, let's see. I'm going to go for this card here.
Okay. Now Sarah could have selected any card at all from the deck, but she selected the card which is now face down on the table. And what I'm going to ask her to do is show us which card she selected.
Right, so the card that I chose was in fact the 3 of diamonds.
The 3 of diamonds, okay, an excellent choice. That card goes back into the deck. Now I'm just going to spread the cards face up on the table, do a little click of the fingers, and you'll see that Sarah's card here has now got a blue back. Not particularly surprising. What's slightly more surprising is all of the other cards have got red backs. And that is the amazing color-changing card trick.
How many of you got all 4? Back there, you got, no? You didn't get 4? No one got 4? I've done this literally to thousands of people, and I can count on one hand how many people have gotten 4. The first person to ever do it she was a ethnographic market researcher, which means she goes out and observes people and environments working for Budweiser beer. So I'm not sure what the connection is there, like, I mean, in dark bars and just seeing stuff, but she got all 4. Why did you miss those color changes? What was going on for you? Just looking at the cards. I heard the word focus over here. So your focus, I asked you to give me an answer. You focused on it. And when you focused, things that were right in front of you, which can be opportunities or threats, were completely invisible, actually. So it's a metaphor for we have to focus. Deb talked about paradox. A paradox is 2 things that are simultaneously true and conflict at the same time. You have to focus every day, and you have to deliver, and you have to look outside and think about the future. It's this paradoxical kind of mindset you have to have. Now, I love the fact that when Paula got up here, she started talking about what's happening in the external world. What are those trends? What's going on with, the dashboard in the car and kind of everyone vying for that? You have an awareness, which is great already in this meeting, of what's happening in the outside world. That is really key. And there's a lot of trends and disruptors out there. And whether it's disruptors for clubs and the value there or for insurance, all of it's important to you. So, you've got drones, you've got, Google Compare, Google Car, Uber, you've got cloud, you've got Internet of Things, smart home, all of that. How then you address that is the question, because it can be an opportunity or a threat as well, just like we saw with that card trick. Now, here's the challenge. If you look at the most innovative company, arguably, in the world today, their CEO says there's no formula for innovation. Yet, how do you innovate? If there's no formula, and the most innovative company in the world saying that there's no formula, and they're continuing to do it, what do you do? How do you do it is the real question. So how do you innovate if there's no formula? Us process people don't like to hear there's no formula. Well, the answer is simple. You create a culture of insight and innovation, right? You've got a whole initiative focused on that. But then I think the real question is, how do you do that? So that's what I really want to talk about for the rest of my time with you. So I'm going to share with you 3 specific strategies to create a culture of insight and innovation. Some of them you've done, some of them you are doing, and some of them I think you still need to do better. And we'll talk a little bit about that too. So the first is define innovation for yourself. Your definition of innovation as an organization and even in your own function should be different from Apple's definition, Google's definition, and anyone else's definition. And I'll talk to you about why that is. And then the second one is you need to seek insight in everything. And I'll talk about what does that really mean, because Marie defined insight. And then we need to lead by example. Kimberly from the CAT team, are you still in the room? You actually said, get out of the way. I'm saying that too. I totally agree with you. So I'm going to share with you these 3 strategies, bring them to life a little bit. So the first is your definition of innovation. Marie defined it. I think it's really important to recognize there are 3 types of innovation here. The small stuff, the stuff that kind of takes you to the next level, and then the really disruptive stuff. And I want to make sure we all understand really what we're talking about here with these definitions. So I'm going to give you a little quiz. Now, this is where you're going to pull out Steve's BlackBerry, okay? So what I want you to do is I want you to answer this question. First of all, how many of you were here in 2010 for the whole kind of separation? Just get a sense. Okay, so a lot of you. All right. So here's your question. So what kind of innovation was the separation from NCNU and acquisition of MAIG? What kind of innovation was that for the organization? Incremental, so your options are incremental, can I go forward here? Incremental, sustaining, or disruptive. Incremental, sustaining, or disruptive. So go ahead and choose 1, 2, or 3. Can they do this now? Music means you can do it now, apparently. Okay, so I think you just hit 1, 2, or 3 on your keypad. Put your vote in there. Okay, so 18% say incremental, 51 sustaining, 31 disruptive. So I'd say you're kind of all over the map. The way I would look at that, now I'm sure for many of you, let's black out the screen for a second. Go back to the other one. I want to talk about the results. So the way I would look at what that was, probably felt disruptive for a little while. Maybe it still does. But really what that's about is it's about figuring out how can you optimize what you're doing today and go after new markets and grow with your generally your current business model from a market standpoint. So I look at that as a sustaining innovation. Sustaining innovation. It didn't change the insurance industry's business model, but it's a sustaining innovation because it's helping you get out there in a bigger way, grow the organization. Okay, so let's go to number 2 example. How many of you have heard of Metro Mile? A lot of you. Metro Mile's cool. You've got for those of you who don't know, I think most of you do, you've got this little port in your car, even the older cars have it. You can plug in, kind of a telematics chip and you can, get information about your car's health. With Metro Mile, they have this app and you can locate your car. You can, kind of get alerted when you're going to get tickets. You can get driving stats, so you can, I don't have this, but I can monitor my 16-year-old daughter's driving and figure, kind of understand that. So what Metro Mile has done is they've kind of made, kind of created intelligence about your driving experience. But what they've also done is that they've gone out there with an insurance offering that is basically pay per mile. So I think the hypothesis here, or the work that they've done, is basically said that 65% of the drivers out there are subsidizing the 35% who are actually driving a lot more. And so that 65% would be their market, because if you go with a per mile solution, you're going to pay less. So question number 2. What kind of innovation is Metro Mile? Incremental, sustaining, or disruptive? So it should pop up here. Hit that music. Incremental, sustaining, disruptive. What is Metro Mile? Yes. The majority has it. True. Disruptive. And why is it disruptive? So it's disruptive because it actually is challenging the financial business model of the industry. It's challenging the industry's business model in terms of how you charge for how the consumer views the financial relationship with their insurance per mile. And imagine a time in which, if they get traction and other larger insurers see this as a viable way to charge for insurance, the whole industry could potentially move to a new business model. Hasn't happened yet, but that's what that kind of innovation represents. So I just wanted to ground us in those definitions so that I can share with you, let's go back to the slides, I can share with you some examples then of how do you support and drive multiple types of innovation all at one time, now that we're kind of grounded in our definition. So how many of you have ever used an Intuit product, whether it's TurboTax or Quicken? Okay, a lot of you, great. So Scott Cook, this is in my first book, and it's a great example of kind of being open to innovation, or being not open to innovation, then opening up. So when Scott Cook created Quicken, it was a way to balance your personal checkbook. And it was a big success because it really simplified managing your own financial accounting. And they went to market, they did great, but their customer feedback on their surveys kept coming back telling them that 50% of their customers were small businesses. Now, these are financially minded software geeks, and they're thinking, we know that's impossible because small businesses need real accounting software. And that's when real accounting software was on the DOS machines, and there was Peachtree and all these other big accounting, really expensive big accounting systems. And they knew that what they were providing, if a business was using that, it would just be completely wrong. They ignored the data for over a year. Kept coming back, ignored. So then they said, well, maybe we should look into this. So they went out and actually visited with some customers, went to some small businesses, and lo and behold, they were using the wrong software in the wrong way because it was simple. It was easy. And these small business owners didn't start their businesses to be accountants. They hated accounting, so they were doing the wrong thing in the wrong way. And what they realized is maybe there's an opportunity here for small business software, so they created something called QuickBooks. And in 3 months of launching QuickBooks, they had 70% market share from that insight. But they had ignored it because they were blind to a lot of those assumptions that they had about who their market was and what the opportunity was. Now, what's happened since then is really the breakthrough. So what Intuit has done, and they've created in their culture, they're the only company I've ever heard of that has a value in their company that they actually talk about. They want to savor surprise. Surprise is good things that happen and also bad things that happen. And they want to open up to surprise. So let me share with you how they do that. They have this thing called Design for Delight. It's a process that they use. They also have this toolkit, which I'll talk about later, but it's a framework. And this framework is 3 steps. First, you need empathy for your customer. And that can be your external customer or member, or your internal customer. If you look at what you do as an internal support function, you have internal customers. Then you go out and you do kind of this divergent to convergent, go broad, diverge, come up with all these different ideas, and then prioritize those. And then you do it again, and then you prioritize them again. And after you come up with some solid, good ideas, you actually go out there and you share them with your customers. Because who else is going to tell you whether your idea is great or it sucks? The customer, who would actually be interested in this thing. So, and then they go back out and they get more empathy, and then they keep iterating until they feel like this thing has legs. Now, they've created a toolkit that everybody has and uses to do that process. And what they've done now is that everyone has the ability to innovate in this way. It's kind of this test and learn approach. Now, in their culture and in their organization, this is their corporate office down the street, you walk in and you've got the Innovation Wall of Fame. These are people who every year this Wall of Fame changes out, but these are individuals and teams who have done something really innovative that they want to celebrate. So, yes, there's product innovation that makes money because most organizations want to celebrate that kind of stuff. But this is where it gets interesting because a culture of innovation is about a culture of value creation. No matter who you are, innovation is your job. So when you look at what else they're celebrating on their Wall of Fame, this is the HR group that is doing college recruiting. Okay, so what have they done? Well, recruiting, as we've seen, talent is very difficult to get in the Bay Area and even outside the Bay Area, especially tech-savvy talent. So what they've done is they actually have taken their Design for Delight process. They do these kind of innovation sessions, innovation jams, and they do them inside. But what they've done is they've taken them to college campuses, and they have a challenge, and they invite college students to come and participate in this innovation session. This isn't about sitting down and doing a one-on-one behavioral interview. This is about immersing themselves with their potential college recruits in solving real problems that their company has. And what happens? They get good ideas. The college students who are interested in maybe an internship sees how cool they are and wants to choose them. And so they get interns who then turn into employees. And it's differentiated them in terms of college recruiting. I look at that as a real sustaining innovation in the whole space of recruiting. They also have, when I was at HP, this is HP, a technology company. I'd call up to get help with my laptop, and it would take me 2 weeks to have some technical support at my desk. What they've done at Intuit, they have the Techno Bar. This is an idea that IT had, which is basically emulate the Genius Bar that Apple has and just have somebody there. So you can, at any time you walk down with your laptop, hey, I need some help. So instant help. That also won the award for the year and is on the Innovation Wall of Fame. So these are examples of IT, of HR, defining innovation in terms of optimizing how they help the organization achieve the results to serve customers, because their mission statement is to transform their customers' financial lives so they won't go back to the old way of doing things. And everyone knows that that's what they're trying to do. IT is trying to make other groups more effective so they can do that. HR is trying to make other groups have the best talent so they can do that. They see that cascading purpose with the customer focus. Okay, so that's number one. Number two, seek insight in everything. Okay, so it's insight. We've been talking about that. There's actually been some great examples of insight as well. So let me just ask you a question. If you are selling drills, if you're in the drill business, you're selling to Home Depot, but really, what business are you in if you're in the drill business? You're in the whole business. You're not in the drill business, you're in the whole business. Why are you in the whole business? Because your customers care about the whole. They want the whole. They don't care about the drill. The drill has to be easy to make the hole, but they want that whole. So when you kind of drill down, pun intended, to the essence of what your customers, whether they're internal customers or your actual members, what they want, what's that whole you're trying to get at? So that's what we're really striving for. Now, there's a number of ways to get insights. So there's quantitative insight and there's qualitative insight. But the essence of it is you're trying to get a deeper understanding of those you're serving. Because if you have a deeper understanding of their, we define those problems, pain points, needs, motivations, workarounds they're doing, and you realize they're doing this workaround, it's taking a lot more time. If we help them, we could deal with that. So an insight is getting that for those you're serving. So that's what we want. Now, there's a company, it's just a great example of quantitative insight. You've got some amazing technology projects going on right now that is going to give you some amazing insights. Insights that you don't even know you're going to get yet from the power of all this data you're going to be able to work with. An example, though, is that you have to kind of know what you want to focus on in terms of that kind of insight. So here's an example. McKinney's is in a kind of property management. And they wanted to understand how do they understand and predict when one of their properties and their customers is going to break their lease and move out, because they needed to really kind of get on top of that. So what they decided to do is to measure elevator traffic in their multi-50-story buildings. By measuring elevator traffic, they put sensors on the elevators. They could tell which floors had the least traffic. Based on which floors had the least traffic, it told them which floors were most likely to not need their lease anymore because they're not using their office space, they're going virtual, for whatever reason. And so they were able to use data and analytics quantitatively to get insight so that they could more effectively manage their business. So that's quantitative insight. Another example of quantitative insight, anybody ever use the Coke Freestyle machine? It's pretty cool, huh? So you go up there, my 14-year-old daughter goes up there, mixes, because you can have 100 different types of soda, mixes the Coke and the orange and like some other disgusting flavor and like, you know, creates this syrupy mess, and she loves it. Well, she might love it, and who else loves it is Coke, because every one of those machines is connected to Atlanta and gives them real-time market intelligence around what's being mixed and ordered. So that every time anyone orders something and mixes some weird drink, then they know it, and they can look at patterns across the U.S., and that feeds their product development. It's an insight. Feeds their product development, feeds their marketing. And they've even created an app now where you can pre-mix and then go up to the machine and it dispenses. But what they've done is they've used cloud, Internet of Things, to consciously gather insights that's going to drive business intelligence and competitive differentiation. So those are various ways in which you can build in the quantitative side of it. Now, there's also the qualitative side, and I will thank Deb for teeing this up. But I do want to ask, how many of you have heard of the Keep the Change program for Bank of America? So about half of you. So how many of you have a change jar at home? Change jar? Okay, so about half of you too. So the reason why I wanted to bring this in, and Deb mentioned it as an innovation, but I wanted to go deeper and talk a little bit about the insight behind that, because I think that this is a great example of the fact that a lot of insights are not quantitative. Innovation happens from qualitative insights too. So what B of A did basically is that they went out and they observed how people deal with, you know, their financial spending. And what they realized at the end of the day, you go home and you drop your money in the change jar, which is actually a change jar is competition for a savings account when you think about it. So what they realized that there's this behavior happening. They then said, how do we tap into that behavior and productize it and monetize it? So they created the Keep the Change program, which basically you go to Starbucks and with your debit card, you put it down, it's $3.50 for your latte, and then they round up to $4, take that 50 cents, put it in that account, and at the end of the year, you actually have a lot of money saved, just like a change jar. So they've digitized an offline behavior. That's a qualitative insight that gives you insight into what you can do with that from a product development innovation standpoint. Okay, so you need to understand what your target is for innovation. Then you need to figure out who are you serving and what are the insights that you can get from them. And then, as a leader, this is where the culture stuff really comes into play. You need to lead by example, and you need to get out of the way at the same time. It's kind of this other paradoxical thing, but let me show you what that looks like. Now, at the beginning of the meeting, we saw mission, we saw values. Values, it's clear your values drive your company, and it's great because you have great values. There are corporate values that also drive innovation. So I want to share with you, here's your next quiz. These are values of a certain company. So if you look at these values, obligation to communicate. Information's meant to move, and that information moves people. We work with customers and prospects openly, honestly, and sincerely. The great fun here will be for all of us to discover just how good we could be. Values. All right, here's your quiz. Grab your Blackberries. Number 1, General Motors. 2, Facebook. 3, Google. 4, Uber. 5, Progressive. Okay. Wow. Even distribution. A little more on the progressive side. You thought I'd throw in a competitor in there. I know you did. So the correct answer is, go to my slide, Enron. Told you I hate trick questions, right? Enron. Because you can say whatever you want to say. It's what you do that shapes culture and values. So let me have you play the video. It's a Candid Camera video. You guys know Candid Camera? Old clip. It makes a good point about culture. Go ahead and play that video.
The gentleman in the elevator now is a candid star. These folks who are entering, the man with the white shirt, the lady with the trench coat, and subsequently one other member of our staff, will face the rear. And you'll see how this man in the trench coat tries to maintain his individuality, but little by little, he looks at his watch, but he's really making an excuse for turning just a little bit more to the wall. Now we'll try it once again. Here's the candid subject. Here comes the candid camera staff, 3 of them at least. And this man has apparently been in groups before. Here's a fella with his hat on in the elevator. First he makes a full turn to the rear and Charlie closes the door. A moment later, we'll open the door, everybody's changed positions. Now we'll see if we can use group pressure for some good. Now, in a moment, on Charlie's signal, everybody turns forward. Notice they take off their hats. And now, do you think we could reverse the procedure? Watch.
That's terrifying. I mean, it's really terrifying when you think about it. It really is terrifying. But if you go to those elevators over there, those same norms are really at play when you think about it. You might try it, see what happens. Those are the kinds of very strong behavioral assumptions and norms that shape, kind of whether or not we get innovation or whether we don't. We're always taking cues from people around us, especially our leaders. And if our leaders are standing in this direction, all of them, it's very difficult to stand in the other. So I'm going to share with you a couple examples about how this can work and some principles for leadership when it comes to innovation. There's a group I've done some work with, the Global Technology Group at Colgate, which is back east. 1,000 people in this organization. And I had nothing to do with this, but I have the story in my next book about innovation culture. And what happened was a couple managers in a meeting had a great success with this new product. And as a kind of a funny, jokey reward, they handed out to their, the team, these wooden nickels, which symbolize kind of something meaningless, no value. That's what a wooden nickel kind of represents. But to them, it had value. It was just kind of like this funny joke. Well, what happened was some of those people who got the wooden nickels found and bought more wooden nickels and started giving them to other people who had contributed to their own projects, who had added value to their projects, who had collaborated with them across functions. And then people started coming back from their desks at lunch and finding wooden nickels left for them as a thank you from some anonymous donor of the wooden nickels. What happened in that organization, because these managers did this, they've created this kind of recognition economy where wooden nickels are now used and shared to represent the value of collaboration and the value of contributing and making a difference on someone else's project, which is exactly what they wanted to have happen. They didn't really mean to do this. It was kind of this unintentional thing, but it actually is reinforcing the behavior that those two managers initially were trying to communicate that they valued. Every behavior, everything a leader does is interpreted as either behavior that's good or bad or what's valued. And that's what this is all about. So at Intuit, going back there, they have this thing called the Catalyst Toolkit. It's a short document, but it has those tools, the empathy tool, the brainstorming tool, and the rapid experimentation test and learn tool that they gave to every employee. And they actually do these little sessions where people can use and apply these things. So it's become a symbol and a tool that anyone can use. They've given it to every single employee. Then leaders step back and they say, you have this toolkit, go and figure out how to do these experiments. And so people do these experiments and then pitch them to their managers, and then they're getting all these innovations that then they acknowledge and reward through that innovation wall. So that's something that they're doing. Now here's the good news for all of you. There's a group who has been working on your own innovation toolkit, which is actually, I've been helping with that, and that will also be available to every employee in the organization, which means that you may be getting people coming to you saying, hey, I have an idea. So the question then is, how do you respond to that? But the good news is that this whole culture of insight and innovation is going to start to pervade the organization, and I'm really excited for that. Now, the challenge for you, though, when people come to you and they either have an idea or they're asking questions about it, it's about surprise. Remember Intuit, opening up to surprise? Well, when I was doing research for my book, I basically went out to Amazon, did a very simple experiment. I typed in business books with surprise in their titles. 100% of them. How do you avoid, minimize, prevent, reduce surprises in business? Is that surprising to you? Shouldn't be. Which, for a company focused on mitigating risk, do you guys like surprises? Not really, huh? So that's the challenge, because you need surprise to innovate. You need to be able to have a little humility as you go out there and talk to your customers, your internal customers, your external members. You need to be able to learn from your mistakes. You need to look at things that happen that are good and bad and look at them as a surprise that tells you something that you can learn from, that tests your assumptions, that allows you to go out there, seek diverse perspectives, listen. Humility is about recognizing you don't, as a leader or a manager, always have the best or one right idea. It's opening up. So that's really what it's about. And it's finally, I'll just leave you with this image, because for an organization that is focused on risk management, risk mitigation, it's really about having and building in the DNA so that you can live with a little uncertainty. Because if you don't have uncertainty and you're going after innovation, it's not really an innovation, because everybody else could do it too. Innovation's about living with little uncertainty, testing out the waters, challenging your own assumptions, having a little humility as you go about it, and being comfortable living in the fog. So with that, I have 1 minute and 14 seconds for a question, if there is any, and then I'll wrap. So just open it up. I can't see anything in terms of if anybody's asking a question or a comment that I can respond to.
Soren?
Yes.
It's Deb Tomlin.
Deb.
Hi. So I love this, and I have to admit, I've seen the card video, and I still didn't get one of the changes.
You didn't get one
I've
of the color
already seen
changes?
it before, yeah. So I learned something new. If you had one bit of advice for us, I really like the stay open and the humility piece.
Yeah.
What would be like a key takeaway we could just go and start doing now?
I think that based on what I've seen, I think every one of you should define innovation for your own function and role and how you're going to add value from an innovation lens. Every one of you should be thinking of whatever role or function I'm in, what does innovation mean for my function in terms of how we add value to those we serve, and how do I then communicate what I want from an innovation perspective to my teams? And let them know there's a toolkit on the horizon, there's a whole initiative on culture of insight and innovation, and that we all play a role in creating our own culture, and that you want ideas. So the thing that you can do is do that, say that, and then you don't have to, there's companies like Google and 3M that give people 10% of their time to innovate. You don't have to reinvent the corporate time clock. What you can do is you can basically make 10 minutes, 20 minutes in one of your meetings once a month to basically say, What kind of innovative ideas do we have? What are their insights about the problems, pain points that we have with the people we're serving? And what are ideas to make things better? Innovation doesn't have to be rocket science. It can be, how do we make things better? So that's what I would make it simple. Yep. Well, I think that's it. Marie, you want to take it back from here? Great. Thank you.